The reign of David Zaslav over Warner Brothers Discovery has been nothing short of an absolute failure, and nothing is more concrete proof of that fact than the fact that he headed the merger between his own company Discovery and Warner Media, and he is now heading up the split between Discovery and Warner Media. This reign has only consisted of about 3 or 4 years, and at every turn he has made the wrong decision, despite touting that he wants that movie mogul success. He at no point has ever made a decision for purely creative purposes. All of it has been in the pursuit of profit and in the downturn of his debt that he has accrued because of the merger. Nothing has gone right with this company since he took over. Not the gaming department, not the TV department, not the movie department, none of it. It's all gone downhill. The shares reflect that, and this split now reflects that. In the background of this split, we should mention that just recently Discovery had layoffs about 2 weeks ago, and to me this seems like a transparent sort of foreshadowing of what was to come with this split. You know, you sort of shed the dead weight that you don't need if you're trying to make a new company look profitable and efficient. So that's what I would assume has happened here. Then there was also the fact that David Zaslav's pay rise got rejected, and then the board reduced his pay. They've made it more incentive based. That means that he has to do well in the profit margins in the stock for him to receive more than his base salary. So this rejection of his pay rise came about because stockholders were asked to partake in a non-binding vote on whether or not they agreed for David Zaslav to receive an increase in his pay. Almost across the board rejected, and the board has then taken that as a signal of, okay, he's not doing well enough, we're going to decrease his pay. And I will get into why this, along with the split, in my opinion, reflects the fact that I believe he might be going for a retirement move here. At the base level, Warner Brothers is splitting from Discovery. This means that Discovery will take on the global networks side of the business. Warner Brothers will take on the movie studio. It will take on HBO Max. It will take on the backlogs of the Warner Brothers studio, the film studio, and it will then also take on the HBO assets. So that's things like Game of Thrones, the new Harry Potter series, Succession, Mayor of Easttown. The global networks company, the new company that is essentially just Discovery, is the TV networks, sports, news, Discovery Plus. That is basically everything that Warner Brothers or Warner Brothers Discovery is essentially looking at and going, this is no longer profitable, this is in a decline, we need to get rid of this. The idea for this new company is that they're essentially going for a managed decline sort of idea. They're probably going to be looking at mergers and acquisitions or private equity. And the other bad thing for this new Discovery company, this new global networks company, is that it is going to take on the entirety of the debt from the Warner Brothers Discovery merger. That merger cost about $40 billion. Only $19 billion of that has been paid off in about 3 years. That means that this new company is going to take on about $21 billion in debt. That is a hefty amount for you to ask stockholders and shareholders to buy into, for you to ask investors to buy into. This suggests that whatever deal that the new company enters into with mergers with private equity investors essentially means that they're going to be getting a pretty unfavorable deal if that investor or those shareholders are willing to take on that amount of debt. I'm very much a layman, so I don't know how all of that sort of works. As someone who is aware of this stuff on a very layman perspective, I don't look at this new company and go, yeah, I want to invest in that. So I wonder about how they're going to sell that off. I assume it's going to be an asset stripping approach, that someone is going to come in and go, oh yeah, I'll take this, I'll take that, but not the entire company. Maybe they'll take the entire company on for 5 or 10 years. Maybe after 5 or 10 years, that private equity investor goes, all right, I can take TNT, I can take Discovery Plus, whatever it is, and just sort of extract that and just dump off the rest. That will be my assumption of what they're going for. The makeup of how I see these two companies in very, very simple terms is that Warner Brothers has a higher ceiling, a much, much higher ceiling in my opinion, and has the potential for more profit, it has the potential for more growth, particularly in its film department in my opinion, and particularly in its games department. Its games department is terrible, I have to say. You know, getting the success of Hogwarts Legacy and then taking a year to announce that you're having a sequel is disastrous in my opinion. That company across the board is terrible. On the other hand, Discovery and the global network side of it, so CNN, Bleacher Report, TNT, all of these are dying. They are still making massive profit within the market of billions is what we're talking about, but those numbers are consistently down. To anyone that is looking at that, you're going, I'll take on another year of profit, but in the meantime I'm going to be splitting, getting away. That is exactly what they're doing. It begs the question of, why did you think this was a good idea in the first place, to be honest with you? Based on those brief oversights, that brief timeline that I provided, it is impossible to see this merger as anything other than a failure. I almost feel as if this merger, from David Zaslav's point of view, was just so that he could supplant the Warner Brothers CEO, and that this for him was essentially just like, I want to run a movie studio. So how do I get there? I've got this billion-dollar company in Discovery. I'm just going to go buy Warner Brothers. I'm going to merge with Warner Brothers. And I'm going to place myself as the CEO. Because it is also undeniable that he was a successful CEO at Discovery. He has been an absolute failure at Warner Brothers, and that is because they are two different companies. When he took over as CEO of Discovery, Discovery was a cable company. It was transformed under him into a content company. That meant that it produced its own stuff. So turning Discovery into a content company was by no means a bad thing. It was by no means a failure. If you look at the stock prices, he actually, in about 5 or 6 years, turned the stock completely around, and it hit highs of around $40 a piece. But there are shows that are on Discovery Plus that Discovery owns that are massively popular, such as Naked Afraid, 90 Day Fiancé, and Mythbusters. Now, these, as I understand it, I think are all finished shows. Maybe 90 Day Fiancé is still going, I might be wrong. These are shows that are massively popular that you can sell a library on because people are going to watch those shows pretty much for time immemorial. There are going to be new people that are discovering that. Through that, they will be introduced to other stuff that you are hoping to sell it through. Now, with that being said, the failure of Discovery Plus is clear because of the failing stocks. They have failed to market this in the streaming era as something that you want. They have struggled to market this as having new shows. But again, with that being said, in the pre-streaming era, he was hugely successful in what he was doing, and he deserves credit for that. That shift from a cable company to a content company was absolutely necessary, and the company hitting highs in his time in about 2013-14, I found that the stocks were hitting at about $10 a piece, so that's a massive turnaround, and he deserves credit for that. With that being said, the Discovery stocks are now significantly lower than they were at that high about 15 years ago. Yes, he turned the company around. Now he is managing a decline of that same company. And that, in my opinion, is the most obvious reason as why he's trying to now offload Discovery. Now, as much as I have said that he deserves some credit for how he turned around Discovery, he also deserves credit for essentially running Warner Brothers into the ground in some sense. And I will say, in fairness to Zaslav, he didn't take over the company in the best position. He took over in the post-COVID era, an era that the previous administration handled terribly. Tenet and Dune both being released day and day on HBO Max is an absolutely calamitous decision. Tenet did not turn a profit. I believe Dune turned a slight profit. In my opinion, the Dune franchise would be way, way, way bigger if it hadn't been released on HBO Max, because that was something that was marketed out of the fucking wazoo, and then you go and put it on HBO Max. It's kind of ridiculous what they did with Tenet and Dune, and again, that wasn't his fault. That was in 2021. He came into a bad time in the company's history. He took over a company that was already struggling before he got there. He has just simply amplified that, in my opinion. The baseline investment and profit is down massively. Profit, particularly this year, other than Sinners and a Minecraft movie, does not look good. You had the Alto Knights movie, which is one of the biggest flops of all time, and apparently was put forward because it was a friend of his that wrote the movie. And then you have the upcoming film One Battle After Another. I'm massively excited for that. But that film had, I believe it was like $125 million budget. I can't say a world based on just DiCaprio's name alone that you're able to sell a movie that looks pretty fucking perplexing for a lot of people who are just casual watchers. And yes, we'll go and watch something that DiCaprio is in, but do the trailers entice them? I'm not really sure. And DiCaprio doesn't look like DiCaprio in this film. I think that will also probably harm them. Then you have things like the tax benefit issues or the tax write-off issues, the Coyote versus Acme sort of saga that has finally been resolved, and that film's coming out next year, I believe it is. It was an absolute terrible thing that they decided to do, and I think probably that is the single thing that has harmed David Zaslav's reputation the most, as being some sort of greedy corporate slug that no one trusts and no one wants to work with. Then you have the Turner Classic Movies situation, which was saved by the likes of Spielberg and Scorsese. Zaslav came in and apparently wanted to cut Turner Classic Movies. I will be honest, I don't have much experience with this. I know it based on name, but I don't think this is something that we have available in the UK. This is essentially a network channel that is very influential in making older movies accessible to your sort of casual audiences and your audiences that aren't going to go to your art house cinemas and that don't have access to the Criterion Collection or expensive Blu-rays. As I look at his entire reign, which, as I said, I think might be coming to an end in the next couple of years, if not retirement, then possibly just him getting ousted and fired. As I look at his full time at this company, it is difficult for me to see anything other than failure. Has there been the occasional success, a Minecraft movie, Sinners? But this is on either the strength of the property that they're inheriting or the director themselves. And of course, there's credit to be thrown around of, oh, well, you went and got the IP. You went and got that director. Yes, I agree. That's fair enough. With that being said, that's not consistent enough to where I feel like that's being deliberate. That feels like something that you've almost stumbled upon rather than going, this is a concerted effort to, we're going to do Sinners, and then we're going to do a Minecraft movie, and then we're going to have Mickey 17, and then we're going to have Alto Nights, and then we're going to have one battle after another. There's no sort of synergy between these movies, in my opinion. I can't see a world in which the Alto Nights needed to be made for $50 million. Who thought that was going to be a good idea? There wasn't any way that you could sell that movie and have it be successful. When I look at this and I see things like he's rehired an old lieutenant, he's had his pay reduced, he's inheriting a smaller company because of this split, it is hard for me to look at this, and also the fact that he's 65, he's getting up there in age. It is hard for me to look at all of this and go, oh yeah, I would be happy in that position. With my reduced role, my reduced pay, the reduced company size, clearly under pressure from the stockholders and the board, it's hard for me to go, yeah, I would just continue on. Why wouldn't he leave? Why wouldn't he retire? He's clearly made enough money. It's just about whether or not he's made enough money for himself. Is he willing to let go of that movie mogul status and willing to go, this didn't work out? And unfortunately, bad CEOs come with bad egos, massive egos. And the truth of the matter is, it will come down to an ego decision about whether or not he further runs this company down into the ground, or whether he's able to go, this didn't work, I need to get out of here. Or whether the board just do it themselves. And clearly, and I would suggest that the massive reduction in his pay should be an indication that might be coming. And then we have Gunnar Wiedenfels, who is taking over the Global Networks company. I'll just refer to this as GN because we don't actually have a name for this. He was the CFO at both Discovery when Zaslav was there, and then he was the CFO at Warner Brothers Discovery. That is the chief financial officer. So immediately, he's an accountant. He's the finance guy. He in the past has been praised by the Warner Brothers Discovery's board for his cost-cutting measures. It's been seen as profitable. It's been seen as a way to reduce debt or to make the company more efficient. Now, with that being said, some of those moves were the Coyote versus Acme moves. A move that he said in an interview was, media likes to talk about media, I guess. The first half of it, media likes to talk about media, I don't really have an issue with. This is true. Media likes to complain when other media gets shut down. That is true. With that being said, punctuating that with, I guess, is so sloppy from one of your chief executives. It's so unnecessary and sort of just paints you as this sort of like Blade Runner-esque Weyland Yutani evil corporation guy that you just don't need that reputation when you already have a stink. I think it would be perfectly fine to go, media likes to talk about media. It doesn't currently fit our portfolio that we're trying to build as a studio, so we wrote it off as a tax incentive. We didn't think it was worth it for us personally to go out of our way to sell it as opposed to just writing it off. With that being said, that's still not going to go over well. People are still going to say, you're greedy, you're corporate slime. But with that being said, it's going to go over a hell of a lot better than, oh, I guess. At least have some sort of self-awareness and survival instinct that like, no, I'm not going to go out here and make myself sound like an idiot and sound evil. Wiedenfels was also the key architect in the merger. So when I'm holding Zaslav to account for this merger fails, I also hold Wiedenfels responsible for this failed merger as well. And now he's going to be a key architect in the split because he is also becoming the CEO of this new GN network. As part of that, he will take on TNT, TBS, TACM, HGTV, Food Network, TLC, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, CNN, and Discovery Plus. It's interesting that he has been the key architect in both the merger and the split, and I would almost suggest is happy to take on this company, considering this is going to go in a decline and it is going to be about asset stripping and selling it off, and what can we gain from selling this to private equity investors. It's interesting that he is almost, I would guess, willing to take on this company, because that would suggest to me that he doesn't care about his reputation or his status. He is purely in this for that payday, and can I sell this and make it look good as a financial decision? And ultimately, I have to say, as much as I was talked about, you don't want to paint yourself as this sort of like evil corporate villain from a 1980s film. That is kind of like evil corporate villain from a 1980s film. Of just like, yeah, we don't really give a shit about any of the products that we have. We're just trying to sell it off for asset stripping measures so we can all cash in and make a payday, a quick payday, and then hightail it out here. It is incredibly disappointing that there was no foresight of what could Discovery possibly add to HBO Max, Warner Brothers. You know, I haven't even talked about it. Discovery, David Zaslav came in here and decided, no, HBO, we can't market that for our family audience, for other audiences other than people who watch HBO. We have to change it to Max. And then just a year later, change it back to HBO Max. And then had to use the marketing to be like, oh, look at us, we're so dumb, we're changing it back. Every decision that has been made under Zaslav's leadership has been calamitous, has been a failure. And it is difficult for me to look at this company as anything other than floundering. Even when it makes 950 million off of a Minecraft movie, even when it makes 350 million off of Sinners, I still have to go, yeah, but look at all your failures. Look at the fact that you don't have consummate management. Look at the fact that you've got rumors about David Zaslav headhunting for new heads of Warner Brothers Studios to replace Abdi and Luca. It's calamitous from top to bottom, but the buck stops with Zaslav just being a terrible studio head who should have never been allowed to run a movie studio. He wasn't a creative guy. He wasn't someone who was renowned for making films. He ran a TV channel, and a successful TV channel that deserves a lot of credit. He deserves a lot of credit for that. But he wasn't making Dune. He wasn't making Christopher Nolan films. He wasn't doing any of that. He wasn't even making blockbusters out of IP that is like, you know, fucking terrible shit like a Minecraft movie. All we can hope for is that he is gone from this company pretty fucking soon. Because this is a failure. And it's hard to be anything other than dejected about Warner Brothers as a company. Individually, we can love their shit. Dune is my thing. That's my franchise. That loses another leg to stand on every few months, every year. And given that this is one of the first Hollywood studios, it deserves more reverence and to be held in more renown than this deeply capitalistic, deeply narcissistic, deeply uncreative studio heads have treated it with. They have treated it like a cow to be milked, and they haven't even milked it correctly. They've gone in, attempted to milk the cow, and have pulled it by its ears. It's not working, and the time is running out for Zaslav. The time is running out for Zaslav's people. We just have to hope that the end of his reign comes before the end of this company.